everyone, it's Tracy McMillan, and today I am doing a webinar for you on the requirements that you need in order to get a divorce. So it's fine to have your application there and say, right, I want to get a divorce, but what do you actually have to prove for a court to allow you to go through to actually get that done? So that's what we're going to work on today, and I'm going to go through, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll be like brilliant people. You'll be able to be a lawyer afterwards. No, maybe not, but at least you'll know how to go through and get your divorce, okay? So in the interest of time, I've got some notes here on the screen. So sorry if I move my head this way, this is just how I'm going to guide you through. All right, so let's get going. All right, so what is a divorce? A lot of people ask me when they call up a lot, they all say, Tracy, I want to get a divorce. And your head would probably immediately think that the divorce means that I've got to go through and divide my assets. But that's not what actually a divorce means. A divorce is solely the legal process of ending your marriage. So that is the ending of a formal marriage. It means once you've got that divorce certificate, you can go and get remarried if you wanted to. Okay, you can't remarry without this process. What it is not, however, it is not the process of dividing up your assets and your debts. Okay, that is what we call property settlement. So that's lawyer speak for dividing your assets. That's a completely separate process that requires completely separate documents. It is not the process of making arrangements for your children, and it is not the process that you go through to get child support payments. Okay, this is all that this is relating to. Now, so now that we've nailed that down, you go, yep, this is still what I need. Good to know we're on the right track. In order to get a divorce in the court, what you need is you need to be separated for a minimum, and I stress an absolute minimum, of 1 year and 1 day before you have filed your application in the court. If you file 364 days from the date that you have separated, the court will not grant your divorce. If you try to collude to say, let's both agree that we've been separated that time, or the other party says, no, we have not been separated for 1 year and 1 day, you have to expect that a court will say, go away and refile your application when that time limit has come up. So remember, do not try to rush it through. There are certain exceptions that can get a divorce through a lot quicker than 1 year and 1 day. But let me be clear. It is not because you have re-proposed to somebody else and you are now getting remarried. That is not an issue of urgency that the court will consider. Okay? So do not, if you're going to get remarried or if you're engaged to get remarried, because I know it does happen a lot, please make sure that you factored in these times for 1 year and 1 day from separation, and then the legal process, which I would add on an extra 6 months onto it just to be safe. Okay? Before you're going to organise your next marriage or wedding ceremony. Now, in order to prove that to the court the elements to get the court to agree to give you a divorce, you've got to prove a few things. Obviously, one is your separation for 1 year and a day, but you have to prove that the Australian courts have the jurisdiction to make your divorce. So that is, you have to have been an Australian citizen. You have to have been been a permanent resident or domiciled in Australia. So that basically means living in Australia a minimum of 12 months before you apply to the court. So if you've got a divorce or if you've got a marriage that occurred overseas and you registered it in Australia, then you can still go through and get a divorce in Australia for most countries. But you had to have either been an Australian citizen or living here for 12 months beforehand, okay? Now, you also need to to demonstrate, so separated 1 year and a day, jurisdiction of the court, and you have to prove to the court that there is no likelihood of you recohabitating or resuming your marriage. If you can't prove that, then the court will not grant you your divorce. Okay. Now, when you're going through to prove that you have separated for 1 year and 1 day, you have to prove that you have actually separated. So in order to do that, you've got to do 3 things. The first one has to be that you have an intention to actually separate. So the reason this is relevant is people like, for instance, FIFO workers, where they fly in, fly out. You are separated by distance, but there's no intention for you to end your relationship. Okay, so you actually do have an intention. Now, the really important part of this is that intention to separate does not have to be by both of you. It only has to be by one. So if one person says, sorry, honey, it's over, I don't want to do this anymore, and the other one says, nope, I'm not hearing that, we are still married and that's the way it's going to be, no, it doesn't matter. As long as one of you is adamant that's your intention, then you're good to go. That's considered to proving the intention. The second thing you've got to do is you've got to have communicated that intention to the other party. So you would think, like in a practical reality world, that packing your bags and walking out of the house is enough to have communicated that intention of separation. It's not necessarily, because there are a lot of people who pack their bags, walk away because they've had a fight or they need a weekend or some time to themselves. That doesn't prove that there is an intention to permanently end that relationship. So what you don't want is to go to court and say, no, I packed my bags and I walked out that day. And then the court says, no, that intention became clear, or that communication of that intention became clear after a period of time had lapsed. Like, for instance, you didn't come back for a month or you didn't come back for 6 months. And then that throws out when you can actually apply for a divorce. So to make it easier and cleaner for you, here's what you do. You pack your bags and then you say either, hi, let's have a chat, I don't want to be with you anymore and I'm leaving, we're done. Or you send an email saying, no, we're done. You can even leave a note, we're done. 2 words, we're done. It's over. That'll work, that'll do it. Or if you really have to, I'd really probably prefer you not, but if necessary, whatever works, you can even send a text message. Again, 2 words, we're done, it's over. I hate you. No, that won't be enough. You've got to do a little bit more than that. So just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're saying it in your communication, it's clear that the relationship is ending. You can write it on a tree if you like, whatever works for you. Now, the third thing you need to do to prove that you've actually separated is you need to have actually acted on that intention. So packing your bags, leaving the house, that's acting on the intention. Packing the other person's bags and throwing them out on the driveway is acting on that intention. Changing the locks, that works. But what happens if you have been separated, but you still are living in a house? So how do you act on that? So that is what we are called being separated under one roof. Now, when you're doing it, it can be done. People do it all the time. If you're going to do this, then I am going to recommend you try and do as many of the following things as possible. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not a case of if you haven't done one of these things, you are not going to be considered to have been separated under one roof. But the more of these things are, the court will look at it as a whole and say, yes, it is more likely they've acted on an intention to be separated under one roof. So again, what is our purpose here? Our purpose is to make this clean, quick, and simple for you. So do this and make it simple. 1, move out of the marital bedroom, or have somebody move out of the marital bedroom. Okay? You can't, I think it's very inconsistent to say, hey, we've separated or ended our relationship, but we're still sleeping in the same bed together. It becomes hypocritical or contradictory. So move into another bedroom, sleep on the couch. I don't care what you do. The other one, try to avoid going back and having the sexual intercourse after you've separated. People do it regularly. It's like buyer's remorse. They go back for that final last fling or hurrah. I understand that that's a normal and a familiar place to be, but you're blurring the lines of separation there, especially if the other person says, well, no, we've just had intercourse, because it's showing an intimacy. So try not to do that. Again, if you can create separate bank accounts, so if you've got your income coming in, make it go into your own bank account that the other person doesn't have access to. I know this is not always possible because you might be relying all on the income solely of one party. So, but you try and separate it as much as possible. Now, if you're wanting to eat your meals separately, so cook your own food, again, it's not exhaustive. You can sit down and have a meal together. It's not crucial, but try to do as much as, think of it like a housemate. Sometimes you're going to sit down and have a meal together. Other times it's like, well, you're cooking tonight, etc. Do your own cleaning and washing. I don't think I know a housemate that would do the other housemate's washing, but there might be one out there. And importantly, try and socialise separately. So don't go out as a united front to the world saying, hey, we're together, but at home you're actually separated. I know a lot of cultures are very private about that type of thing, and that's okay. It just sends a very clear message that you are separated. So we're wanting to make it very simple, quick, clean, easy for you. So socialising separately. And what I find is probably the most important thing when you're separated under one roof is communicate the fact that you have separated to outside parties, so people outside of the marriage. So family members, friends, so people who are close to you who would understand and go, yes, we know that they're separated because they've said, hey, we've separated, okay? So if you do all of those things, then the more of those things you can do, the more likely a court is going to say, yeah, we're satisfied you've acted on the intention to separate. Now, when you're going through with a divorce, while I have said to you that a divorce application is not the place where you determine a child's arrangements for the children, the fact of the matter is if you have children under the age of 18 from that relationship, and you've applied for a divorce, the court will not make any order for a divorce unless they are satisfied that you have made arrangements for your children. Now, this can be informal arrangements, and there's a section of the application that allows you to outline who the children are living with, how much time they're spending, what schools they go to, and give the court a brief outline. If you fill that in, that is not evidence of your relationship in a formal sense. It is just telling the court what it is your intention is for the arrangements of the kid. That's enough, all right? If you haven't been able to come to arrangements for the children, you will have to note down that you have either commenced proceedings for the court to make a determination for the children, or that you're going through mediation, or you're starting that whole process to actually deal with the arrangements for the kids. And that's actually quite important. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much you've satisfied the fact that you've separated. The court's just going to say, I'm not interested until I know that those kids have been sorted out. Okay, so that's very important. Now, the other thing I want to raise is if you have been married for less than 2 years prior to the day that you have actually filed for your application for a divorce. Now, this is a different category to normal. The courts in these circumstances require you and the other party to attend on counselling. You have to attend the counsellor to get and obtain a counselling certificate and to say, hey, yes, we there's no ability for us to resume our relationship. So they want to make sure you've given it your best efforts and you're not just, fresh to the relationship and acting hot-headed, I think. So you'll have to go through that process. If you're not wanting to go through that process, you're going to have to ask the court for special permission to avoid having to do that. That will be the only time the court's going to permit that is if special circumstances exist, such as, let's say they have physically dropped off the face of the earth and you don't know where they are, so you can't locate them. Let's say that one person's become incapacitated, or if there is domestic violence, so extreme domestic violence involved and you're risking your safety, things like that. Or one person's gone overseas. Let's say they came from overseas and they've gone back overseas. So if those are the circumstances, then you can apply to the court for an exemption, but otherwise you're going to have to go through to get that counselling certificate. So those are the things that you're going to have to prove in order to get through court for your divorce. Short, sweet, to the point. That is the end of my webinar. Now, if that is helpful for you, that's great. I'm really, really glad. What we are doing is we're doing a workshop series it'll take about 3 hours of your time. If you're interested, you can register below. It's a workshop where you're going to go through and actually complete your divorce application online. I'm going to work it through with you. We're going to go step by step through each of the questions so that at the end of the workshop, all you're going to have to do is press a button and then you will be able to file that entire application online. So it'll give you everything you need to be ready to file in court. So if you have questions, if you're not confident about doing your own application and you want some reassurance, then register for the workshop. We're limiting the workshop to 15 attendees only, and that is solely so that we're going to have interactive, so as I can answer your questions as we're going. You can ask any questions that you want of me, just so as you can actually get something quite productive for you. We also have an extension. We have 4 webinars in this series. So if that has answered some of your questions, but maybe not of others, then click on the other link below and you'll have a list of our webinars there that you can go through and help inform yourself. I hope this has been really helpful and I look forward to seeing you at the workshop.